my man.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Gonna do a little video, a little this. Grab some breakfast, talk a bit. Oh, wow. I don't think I'll have to eat the rest of the day. I go through these diet phases where I'm like really clean and then I just lose it, so.
Whatever. Don't be talking like you're older than me.
Would you like any cheese, sir?
Yes, please.
What would you like?
Just, what do you have? What are the choices?
Oh, this is mozzarella, cheddar, feta, goat.
Oh,
got
geez.
jalapeno peppers, then we got sausage, sir.
Can I have some goat?
Yes, sir. Sure, man.
I guess this is a busy week for you?
Not really. It's been
No?
kind of slow for us,
Okay.
too, sir. Just to be honest about it.
Okay. So, Bill, we're at the NFL Combine this week. Whenever I think of Indianapolis, I think of two things. I think of NFL Combine, and I think of you guys, IFAST, Bill Hartman, Mike Robertson. You guys had me out here. It was a wonderful time. The quality of education you guys provide, top notch. Everybody I talk to, and it's amazing the kind of reach that you have, because I know people in different jobs, professional sports, physical therapy, who have come through here,
Right.
and identify you as a key influencer or a key mentor in their progression. And so I want to talk to you about what do you do in a typical day, but kind of go back and talk about who influenced you and how you got to this point, and then we'll talk more about your specific day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. Well, thanks for like the association first and foremost, because I'm not sure how that happens. And I wish more people knew about us here locally, because we do have like sort of this weird national recognition that doesn't even exist in our home city. You know, if more people would associate us with the Combine, that would be pretty sweet too.
Hey,
you know, but I've been very lucky to have a lot of good people come through. I think that's when you talk about our reach and such, it starts with just having great people come to see us and want to be a part of what we do. So we've had 5 guys in the NBA, we've got a couple in Major League Baseball that all came through our system, which is just outstanding. And it's not to our credit, it's to their credit. They were just really good people that came through, and basically, in that scenario, you just don't screw them up. Give them a little bit of guidance, and these people are already highly motivated. They just want to learn more and more. And again, if we provide some element of that guidance, then and they associate us with that, then we'll take that. But the credit goes to these guys. I mean, you talk about a guy like Mike Robertson, who was with Golden State when they won their championship, and now he's in Atlanta running the show there. And then his replacement was Mike who was also one of our interns, and Eric Otter's in Memphis.
Right.
He worked for us. Zach Couples was at Memphis for a while. Now he's independent, but I don't know if we do anything terribly special other than keep wanting ourselves to get better, and then we share that, and maybe that's the association that we can instill in them, and just say, there's a lot to learn, just keep learning and keep getting better, and then we just ask them to pay it forward, so help somebody else out. And so maybe that's where the association comes from. I've established a situation where I have an element of control over what I do, what I don't have to do anymore, and it's very comfortable for me, and I don't know that I could live in that environment where the opportunities for creating an ideal environment are so powerful, but yet difficult to implement because there's so many people involved. And like I said, I've just sort of created my own little little cocoon of safety and education and teaching that I enjoy. I just don't think I could handle what they're doing right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel the same. I'm not doing as much stuff as you, but I feel like I've come to a point in my life where I don't need to put myself in that situation, and I'm happy with the kind of interactions and the kind of work I'm doing. So, but if we go back to you being an influencer now, who influenced you?
A lot of people that nobody knows.
It's okay.
Honestly, you know, I grew up in a competitive family. I think that has a lot to do with that early attitude. You know, I was the fourth of four, so you know, last one in the group, smallest one in the group, youngest one in the group.
Yeah.
Always have to, you know, I'm the one that got the, you know, the trickle down, the picking on and such, and not that I have a terrible family or anything. It's just incredibly competitive. If you ever get to associate with anybody that I'm related to, you will find that there is the constant challenge of one-upmanship that has to take place. So from an educational standpoint, it was always competitive. Everybody always wanted to be, you know, the smartest one, athletically, always the best one. And so we had that instilled in us. My mother is an incredibly intelligent human being, and so she established sort of a role model in that regard. My dad was very intense at times, and I think that we carry some of that with us, and if we can channel it favorably, then I think that's a good thing. So that structure alone sort of sets the tone for everything that follows. And then, you know, you have a coach here and there that gives you some guidance. When I was in physical therapy school, I was mentored by one of my instructors, and then I actually got to work with him afterward. And that was a really important transition for me, because it was a little bit of hand-holding coming out of PT school, where, you know, I wasn't immediately thrown into this situation independently.
Yes.
I still had my mentor with me as I guided, and then you slowly sort of evolve your own way, and so I structure my internships very, very similarly in that regard. And I always tell my interns, you know, after you leave here, your confidence level will expand a great deal, because I'm not in the room anymore, right? But I just gave you a shove, maybe in the right direction. At least I hope it's the right direction, and so far it seems to be doing okay. So that mentorship was probably the most important one from a professional standpoint. And then it's just a matter of, you know, reading, going to courses, associating with some really good people, and then those relationships spur another interest, or you start to expand your model. And so to say that there was, you know, any one person, it would probably be my Dr. Joe Santiesteban is the guy's name, and he's still working. He's in his 70s. He's still working, and still obviously being very, very effective. And so that would be like my first professional mentor.
What sports did you enjoy participating in when you were younger and being competitive in?
Yeah, so small town. About, let's see, 3,000 people, I think, when I was there. It's a little bit bigger now. We had one stoplight when I was there, and now they have multiple, so it's really gotten big, and we have McDonald's now. I played 4 different sports in high school, so football, basketball, baseball, and then track. And then in college, played a little bit of football, and through javelin.
Wow.
Which I learned that from my brother was the Purdue record holder for a while.
Okay.
So he broke a 25-year-old javelin record, taught me to throw over summer. I then participated in Junior Olympics that summer. I came in 10th at the Nationals.
Wow.
It wasn't that impressive, trust me. But it sounds great. You know, there was more than 10 people, so you know, I wasn't last. So the athletic part has always been part of it.
The javelin's really like people think throw the javelin, but it's very technical. Like, did you get something out of that?
It seems that way, but my sister was a shot put disc thrower at Purdue as well,
Okay.
and a very good one, and so she threw javelin as well. So we all had some element of it. But again, I think coming from a broad spectrum of athleticism helps a tremendous amount.
Yep.
You'll hear this a lot when people talk about long-term athletic development and being exposed to a variety of sports and problem solving and such. It really wasn't that difficult to pick up as far as the initial technical aspects of it, and then it was just a matter of evolving over time, and practice.
Did you find that carried over into throwing a baseball or throwing a football? Like, were you good at throwing stuff?
I was a quarterback, but we were as more of a running quarterback than a throwing quarterback.
You weren't Terry Bradshaw?
No, not even close. Not even close. But I did appreciate the index finger on the end of the ball concept. That was a javelin related thing. That's why Terry Bradshaw held the ball the way he did, because he was a hell of a javelin thrower at Louisiana Tech. Yeah. No, I mean, I wasn't throwing anything else by then, really, because all the throwing sports were early on in the high school career.
What got you interested in physical therapy?
I needed to do something, and there wasn't anything else to do, to be honest with you. So I was in grad school studying exercise physiology, and spending a lot of time in the lab, staring at the computer screen of the metabolic cart while we were doing testing. So back then, so before you were born, and I was working in the lab. We were doing the early studies on excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. And so we were in the early phases of that. So there's a lot of like treadmill, a lot of bike-oriented stuff. And we're just sitting there, and you're just doing all these graded exercise tests and just trying to see what happens. And so we did a lot of that, and it seemed like this is kind of a dead end, right?
To all you physiologists out there,
I have a totally different attitude about it now. I think it was just the element of the grunt work that was associated with it that I didn't see the end game. We didn't have resources like the information that's available now. Just go to Google and you can become an expert in something, right? And if we would had access to this broad base of resources rather than having to go down into the stacks of the library, I think my attitude would have been a little bit different, and I probably would have continued to pursue something in that respect. But I knew I had to do something physical, more physiological, applied. And so physical therapy just seemed like a natural progression from where I was. I was interested in exercise. I wanted an element of that. Fascinated with athleticism, and so I needed an element of that. It just seemed like the logical course. It really. I mean, I didn't want to go to medical school. I didn't want. I got my oldest sister is a physician. So I saw what she went through with medical school, and it's like that doesn't look like much fun. And so, like I said, it just seemed like a natural evolution. I've always kept my foot in the exercise-related game. So even when I was going through grad school, I was working in a small gym. I trained people all through PT school, and so I've always had like the side business or that side association going along with it. Which is probably how we evolved into what we have in IFAST, which is we have the rehab side, we have the fitness side, and so I'm lucky enough that I get to bounce back and forth as I desire. Mostly rehab at this point, but I still have my foot in the gym stuff too. So that's the evolution. That's how I got to where I am now.
Now, going through that, and you touched on like all the information we have, and maybe it's even an issue of we have too much information available to us. How do you conduct your teaching process or mentorship process when you have interns in there? And you touched on it a bit, but what are the key things you hit on?
First and foremost is you have to teach them how to learn, because a lot of what they've been, or the way they've been instructed is a lot of rote memorization. So the thing that always stands out is their gross anatomy and understanding of dynamic anatomy is lacking, because the way it's taught is this structure is here, this structure is here, this structure is here, rather than creating a a representation of here's what happens when you move this way, here's what's happening at this joint, here are the associations, here's these relationships between parts, and then building out this dynamic model. And so that's something that I think is lacking. So we try to do a lot of that.
Okay.
Rather than, and that creates an analogy from which to build, right? So now when they see somebody moving in a certain way, they have something that they can associate with. Whether I'm right or wrong in my model is I mean, I want to be as right as possible, but I'm less concerned about being absolutely perfect. All I want to do is make sure that they establish an analogy first, and then we can make corrections. Yeah. So, because again, if I have nothing to associate it with, then it's lost. That knowledge is lost. And so I always try to work from that type of a model. Create an analogy first, and then build upon it. And then it's just a matter of trying to understand an integrated human as much as we can with the understanding that we do have. So it's not, the pure mechanics of things. There's neurology involved, but there is the funny thing is I'm studying a lot of physics now, going back to looking at the physics of these relationships and these huge influences that we have in that regard, to understand angular momentums and torque, because that's how we move. And if we can understand those things, and I give them a little bit of that, I don't want to overwhelm them. And again, I'm by no means a physicist of any stretch of the imagination, I'm strictly amateur at this point. But that element as well goes into looking at these things versus yanking and pulling on muscles, associating deficits in movement with somehow lacking strength, whatever that measure is. I try to avoid using the term strength anymore, because I don't even know what it means anymore. It seems to be a weight room number. I'm more concerned with force outputs and those elements, and trying to understand those a little bit more effectively. So again, I just try to give them a little taste of that, and then how does all this stuff interact? So if you think about just the simple element of trying to control the internal momentums within the axial skeleton. So you got a gut full of fluid, and that fluid moves, and we use it to make ourselves more efficient. But if we lack control of that, then we lose our efficiency. So little things like that go a long way to understand. Okay, so if someone's pelvis is oriented as such, what does this do to the momentum of the body? How does it affect us? And now you see, so if I can't control that momentum, this limits my movement in such and such a way. Well, now I have an understanding of what I need to do from my intervention standpoint, and again, that just builds on top of this structural model, the neurology that's associated with it, but then going back to the physical mechanics of it. So again, that's basically what we do, and it sounds like, this is really heady stuff, but it's not. I'm not very smart, so I try to keep it as simple as possible, so I can understand it, and then if I can teach it, I get better. And that's the ultimate reason why I have students, is just so I can keep getting better. It's totally selfish. I have no concern for anyone else's well-being.
And I've heard, I forget who was telling me, but they were saying, Bill's studying animal models now, and which I think is awesome, because I always, from a sprinting point of view, I'm watching cheetahs, I'm watching horses, and every other animal can run faster than a human. So, so I find that there's something I can learn from that. And what are you finding?
Interesting stuff. So you think of analogous structures and why we are as we are. So we're bipedal, and almost all other animals are essentially quadrupeds. And so how did we make this transition to become bipedal, and then what are the consequences of that? And then you start to understand why everybody's faster than we are. Because the reality is when we go to bipedalism, the challenge associated with remaining vertical against gravity is ridiculous. And because we do have a nervous system, and we do have a cortex that gives us an opportunity to predict the future, we are in a constant state of vigilance in regards to just remaining upright. And if you think about it that way, now you understand why somebody that's 6'8" compared to somebody that's 5'8" has a different movement challenge than somebody that's 5'8", and so they were going to produce force differently. They're going to control their center of gravity differently, and so that's where the animal models come in, is because they provide us a guidance as to, okay, this animal has a certain type of structure, and what advantage does that provide, and where do I see this in a human? Because there are certain elements that we will regress towards that make us feel safer and give us more elements of control in this bipedal stance. And when I start to see these things show up in clinic, now I know where they're going. And so now again, it just guides the intervention as to, okay, I take this person that has given up their variability, given up their adaptability for safety, but now it's getting them in trouble because they've lost so much variability. They continue to put pressure and tension in certain areas, and it shows up as a pain experience. And then how do I reverse that? Right. So now I intervene in a progressive manner to get them back to where I've instilled variability in this system. Now they become more adaptable, and maybe that impacts the pain.
Yeah. No, I
so that's why and it's fascinating first and foremost is to see just the subtle differences between humans and just look at primate cousins, and then you go to the quadrupedal. And my dog has taught me a lot about, seriously, the epiphany, the one day where I had an epiphany in regards to just, one of the mechanical components of the thorax. Because of the shape of a dog's thorax, they only move in certain ways. They move in certain ways very, very well, and then they can't move in certain ways. So if you get your dog standing up on your hind legs, you will see elements of that show up in people that are distressed and have given up their variability and adaptability. So it's like, oh, light bulb moment. Okay, I got somebody that wants to go back to being on all fours. Now maybe that just gives me some guidance as to where I would actually start these people to where they feel safe.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm not going to look at a dog the same way anymore, right? And yeah, I'm gonna get you a book. I'm reading a book right now. It's called Why We Run, and it goes through all of those processes, and it talks about perhaps we evolved to bipedalism because when somebody did that, they could see farther. They could see, like, I can hunt that, or there's the predators coming after me. And the other one was, I think they said, sun, when you're a quadruped, the sun can like kind of bake you more surface area. So it was interesting. I'm like, oh, okay, I never thought of it.
So I burn my shoulders instead of my back.
Yes. I get skin cancer on my shoulders. But yeah, no, I think that type of approach, it seems like you're just explaining a philosophy, a systems approach that is highly adaptable, just like you're trying to make all of your clients.
It has certainly evolved in that way. I don't think that anybody has the answers yet, and I don't know if we can, because we're dealing with a very, very complex system, and complexity demands that we determine causes and effects in hindsight. We can't predict these things. So it's a constant state of safe to fail experimentation. We're not putting people at risk, but we have to do an experiment. We have to intervene, and then we have to see how the system responds, and then that determines our next step. But by gaining a broader analogy of understanding of different systems, so looking at quadrupeds and comparing it to bipedalism, you now have a much broader analogy of understanding that I can say, oh, that's what this means under this circumstance, so I should try intervention A. And then I see if intervention A is successful or it fails. And if it fails, then I kind of know, okay, so that wasn't the right direction. Make a note for next time as to what intervention I'll try. And so again, the system is in a constant state of evolution through its respective complexity.
Yes.
And that's why your job is difficult at times, my job is difficult at times, and then there's some times where you just like hit it out of the park.
Yeah.
You have those great moments where you go, way to go me,
Now, if you're like me and you're trying to keep things simple, how does something like technology enter into your world? Like, are you a real technology advocate? Do you try to keep it simple?
I am so simple, in fact. So in my room, I have a wall, I have a table, and I have maybe some rubber bands.
Okay.
And that's about the extent of it.
Okay.
If I could, I would have some sort of way to monitor the system in real time, but that would cost hundreds of thousands of
Sure.
dollars, and that's just unrealistic. So what we have to do then is that we have to rely on the response of the system itself as our measurement tool. So we're literally measuring the constraints of the system, identify limitations in those, in the expression of those constraints, and then try to determine how do we maximize the variability. Because my scope of practice is limited. I have movement. That's essentially all I've got to go on. So what do I need tool-wise to do that? Well, I just measure. I measure the skeleton, I observe movement, and then we determine whether we're right or wrong, and the patient gives us the best response.
Yes.
In that regard, it's like, okay, I feel better, no I don't. They demonstrate better movement, or no they don't. And so again, I don't need that much. Now when we start to think about restoring things like capacity and force production and such, because we do have to take people through graded exercise to return them. So you think about taking an athlete and returning them to play. It's the same issue with anybody. Even your average Joe needs capacity. They need power output. And so that requires just a little bit more equipment, but that's out in the gym, and that's that can be as simple as a cable machine and a barbell.
Yeah.
So I'm very low tech.
That's okay. That's okay. At least for this, I'm handling the tech, so we're fine.
That is fine. This is all beyond me.
Yeah. We talked about being able to predict and having these predictive models. What are you looking towards in the future now? What do you predict for yourself? And what kind of projects, what kind of new areas do you want to look at? You talked about physics. Are there some other things that fascinate you that you want to kind of move into?
You mean as far as study goes?
Study, your practice, your
Well, I want to retire someday, I think, but I can't. I've got students already scheduled for 2020. Take a student every semester, so that's something I don't want to give up. I really enjoy that part, and so that's always going to be a part of the process and such. I want to take some of my ideas, put them down on paper, offer it up to the masses, and see if it's of any use.
Yes.
I want it to be useful. Certainly nothing original in anything that I do, but maybe my perspective offers an element that will help somebody else understand something better. Because again, I don't think I have the capacity to create anything totally unique in any way, shape, or form. But I want to do more of that. As I get older, I'm enjoying the teaching aspect of it more than the actual doing aspect of it.
Sure.
Right. And so again, the internships have sort of directed me in that way. And so I think that's probably where we're going to head more in the future. And Mike Robertson and I have talked about this as well. It's like we have all this information that we give to these small groups of people every semester. So we'll have 3 or 4 gym interns, and then I'll take a physical therapy student. And so we have this small group, and they get this really, really intensive education over a period of 3 or 4 months. And so again, extending that out. So
have you thought about scaling it so that from an internet-based sort of web-based approach?
So that is actually the plan. There's actually now an area on my website where I'm evolving a sort of like the mentorship aspect of what I do with my PT interns, and so I'm gonna sort of extend that out.
Cool.
And offer that to people. And so literally what we do is, short of actually recording a patient interaction, which I don't want to do. I don't want to put my patients on the spot in that regard, but as far as the educational component of it, all the discussions, all the lectures and presentations are going to be made available to whoever is interested.
That's awesome. Where's the best place to find that?
That's on the billhartman.net website.
Billhartman.net. Okay.
Yeah, there's a red box there. You just click on that and it'll get you there. And then they can sign up for that. It's not official yet, so I'm just throwing out little pieces of content right now, just to give people a taste to see if they're even remotely interested in it. But again, it'll become a full-fledged system here in hopefully a couple months.
That's great. And you do have a book that you published.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. All Gain, No Pain is the book, and people say, well, why did you even write this? Because it took care of a problem for me, actually. So the thing that I always get at the end of the treatment, so at patient discharge, you get the two questions: can I exercise, and then what should I do? And for the patient, they're sitting there. It's like, this is a 2-minute answer. And it turns out that it's a 20-chapter answer.
Yeah.
And because of all the things that I want to make sure that people have an understanding of, and then looking at all the potential influences that they can manage themselves. And that's essentially what the book became. So the first section of the book is understand how you got here in the first place, and then understand the foundation that is going to keep you healthy in the future, and then understand how to build resistance to what got you here the first time. And so those are the 3 sections of the book. And so, like I said, it just solved a problem for me. And now when I get the question, I just say, here's the book.
That's great.
$5. Get the book for $5.
It's only $5?
It's $5, yeah.
Jeez, okay.
Yeah.
You're selling yourself short there.
If anybody that thinks that they can make a bunch of money selling books in the first place,
this is true.
unless you're, one of like a Ryan Holiday kind of a guy that can crank out these really impactful books that extend to a much larger population. I don't think you can make money that way, at least, or I don't know how. That might be the problem there.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm going to direct people. We'll put all your information on the site and how to get to your soon to be developed course, and I think that's a great way for you to just be accessible, right? Because I know some people, when they look at internships, like, oh, I gotta go live there, I gotta uproot myself. But this sounds like a really good solution for some people.
I hope so. I think it'll benefit. Again, it's going to benefit some people, and some people will say this isn't necessary, or some people just won't like it, and that's fine. That's fine. It's for the people that would be interested in it.
That's right. And you definitely have from what I understand, you have a pretty good, broad, committed audience. So I'm looking forward to hearing more. So thank you very much, Bill. We're going to go walk into the lobby and find some clients for you.
There you go.